Alright everybody, today I got a 2017 Mini Cooper in the shop. We're going to put a clutch in it. It's got right at about 48,000 miles. So start with some basic things here, and let's get the battery disconnected and the airbox out of the way. And I'll just say right now, this is my first one on this generation of the Mini Coopers that I've done. Okay, we'll disconnect the negative battery cable here. And let's go and pull the airbox out of the way. Okay, now we can see what's going on in this connector here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this shift linkage down here. Right here, and I'm going to use a 17mm wrench on this one and just pry that off. Okay, on this other cable, I'm going to use this pry bar just to get under there and pry this off. Okay, so those shouldn't take too much effort, and I'll show you what's on the other side of these cables and how to disconnect those from the transmission. Okay, now to get the shift cables out of the brackets, both of them look about the same, and I'll verify this, but it looks like we need to push on this tab right here, and there's one similar on the other side there that might have to be pulled on. I'll get those removed and let you know how that goes. Thanks. Alright, pull these two 13s on the battery tray. So we got one here and one down here. Now we'll just get the battery out of the way. There's 13 down here. Do the battery vent. Okay, so there's a couple of cable clamps holding onto the battery tray here for the wiring harness. And pry those up. And then one here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and undo these 13s that are down here. One back here, one there. You can see that one there. And a couple more up front, one here and one helping hold the module in. I'll get those undone. Okay, I'm going to pull the top of this cover off here. Maybe take this off first. Okay, go ahead and unplug all the connectors on the computer here. So I got these pliers. I like them for connectors like this. That have a tab on both sides. Okay, now the rest have some kind of sliding lock mechanism here. And these ones have kind of a lever style. Has a little tab back here that will press down. Press that down first, and then you can fold the lever over. So press that tab down, fold the lever over. Same thing here, press the tab down, fold the lever over. The last one here. Okay, now this harness assembly will come out of this bracket. A little small lock tab on that. Another connector here. Okay, I want to see what it takes to get this side panel off. Okay, so this panel on the side actually just slides out at this point. And then there's a few more connectors down on the side here. So I'll get those undone and work on getting this module all the way out, and then we're going to remove this battery tray down here so we can see the top of the transmission a little better. Okay, so on the side of the module was this battery cable that came off and a smaller cable here that attached to the positive battery cable. And so I just took that nut off, removed those two eyelets, and was able to swing this whole module off to the side and out of the way. Now I'm going to work on getting the tray out here, which is snaps on here on the body over here, and it does have the clutch cable assembly is attached to the bottom of the tray, so I'm going to remove that, and that tray should come out of the way. Okay, so I got the battery tray out. The clutch hose or line assembly had a couple of these clips on it, one there and one over here, and they just snapped onto the bottom of the battery tray, so like right here and over there. And then we get that tray just kind of popped up and came out, and we have access to the top of the transmission. So we can see the shifter cable is a lot easier now, and these tabs here just get kind of separated like that, and it'll slide up. Okay, we'll do the same on the other cable here. Okay, and just push those tabs apart and wiggle that cable out. Okay, so I'm going to go after some bell housing bolts while I'm here. So what I can see is the one here. There's one further up in there. And one farther down under the throttle body here. So I'll go ahead and get those removed and lift the car, get some wheels off, start working on pulling the axles out. So these are E14 reverse torques. Break them free with my hand ratchet first and then spin them out with the electric ratchet. These are not aluminum like some of the bolts on BMW and newer vehicles. Okay, let's pull some tires, the lower shield. It's got to be about the lightest tire ever. Watch it juice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull this lower shield down, a bunch of 8mm on that. Okay, looking from the bottom, we got to remove the entire subframe. So we're going to hang the radiator up here off of these pins here so that it cannot fall through. That should hang the radiator. And we're going to disconnect the steering shaft from the steering gear on the inside of the car. And so first thing I'm going to do is take this cover off that's around the steering column. So there's 3 10mm that hold that plastic cover on. I'll go ahead and remove those and we'll gain access to the universal joint on the steering shaft. So on the inside we've got this cover over the steering column. It sits in there like that. So you got to remove the far left 10mm, and the 2 on the right are slotted, so you just need to loosen those up and we can pull this cover out, gain access to the U-joint on the steering shaft here. Okay. Now we can remove and now that we've got that removed, you want to make sure your steering wheel doesn't turn so you don't damage the clock spring possibly. And I like to attach it either with the seat belt through the steering wheel, or on this one I'm just going to use a bungee cord and go down to the seat, hold that in place. So we're going to go ahead and pull these fender liners out. There's one clip on each side up by the strut, and then a few 8mm screws around the side and a couple that are down on the... Okay, so there is a lock mechanism on both sides of the intercooler on the bottom. So you got to pull out this tab here first. So it looks like that. And then the rest of that should come on down. grab that different pair of pliers. Okay, so pull out those lock mechanisms, and that'll let our intercooler come free out of that part of the subframe. And I did remove 18mm bolts on both sides of the subframe here. Pull these little harness connectors out of there. There was a bracket holding the washer jug on up here that had 3 10mm on it. So remove that, and then there's an 8mm, 2 8mm on both sides of the subframe there. And on this side, so I'll pull those out and get the next step. Okay, that 8mm a little farther front, it's got to come out on both sides as well. So okay. Well, when we drop the rear part of the subframe, we'll get that out as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect sway bar links up here. I'll spray these down a little first and let them soak. And I'll probably hold the shaft in there with a torque socket and get that nut to spin free. The exhaust has to come loose off of the subframe on the back here. These mounts do. So I already sprayed those a while back with some WD-40. And we'll go ahead and try. These pliers. See if that'll push that mount out. They're real nice when they work. Try this one. Maybe a pry bar. Much easier. Okay, we'll go ahead and disconnect these sway bar links on each side. Hold that stud with a T30. Same thing on the other side. Alright, and this side's got a bunch of crud in there, so I can't get the Torx wrench in there to hold it. Alright, that's the second sway bar link. Okay, we got to get the subframe down, which is above these covers here, so we'll pull those down. Okay, now we're going to disconnect the tie rod from the knuckle on each side and separate the lower ball joint. on both sides. Okay. 21 maybe. Let's go ahead and disconnect the nuts on the tie rods. Stud's trying to spin. So go ahead and hold that tie rod up in there so the stud doesn't spin. Go ahead and pry these control arms down. Get the ball joints separated. Let's see if this side will cooperate a little more. Helps to have some leverage. Okay, so I did disconnect the steering gear electrical connectors up there. There's 2 of them. And I'm going to go ahead and pull down this mount. Kind of a torque mount that connects the engine to the subframe here. We'll pull that out of the way. And disconnect the plug here on the level sensor. The right front, and then it should be subframe bolts, so we've got one up there on each side, and then the rear bolts, so these bigger bolts back here on the subframe, and I believe that'll let us lower it down. So we'll get set up and pull those bolts out. Yeah, mark that mount just so I know where it goes, don't have to figure it out later. Get those loose with my hand. That Milwaukee gun's pretty strong. Some extensions and swivels kind of lifts on your torque. And I'll just keep all my bolts with the mount that I take off. These are E16s up here through the control arm to the upper subframe mount. Should be got tranny, no, I'm sorry, oil cooler line or something attached here. Get that separated from the subframe. I'll get that disconnected here in a second. Hang on to that for a sec, and so I pull the rear bolt, see if the subframe gets loose. And these are big, like an E20 or something back here. And okay, on this control arm bracket back here, I'm going to pull these covers here, and there's I took the big bolt out of the subframe back here, and there's going to be another bolt behind these covers holding the control arm bushing on each side. So I'll get these covers pulled back and we'll take those bolts loose. Okay, I broke these bolts loose by hand. Okay, subframe is loose now. I'll go ahead and disconnect this fuel line so I can pull that underneath the steering gear. See what we need to do to get that done. And this car is going to need an alignment next door with my son after we put the subframe back up. That kind of holding everything in place, so it's going to need an alignment. When we're done here, I'm going to get that fuel line released, and on the fuel line I'm just going to squeeze these two tabs here and separate that. I did remove this little bracket here that holds it in place, and it runs through to the back side. That's this white line here. That's what it looks like. So I probably have to pull the subframe down off of that line. Oh, look. Okay, we can disconnect in both spots. So light up in there so you can see. Sorry, there is another connection up in here for the fuel line. So I'll disconnect it over here at that one and the other one so it can come down with the subframe. So I'll get those disconnected and we'll pull the subframe down. Fuel line out of the bracket here, squeeze the two tabs in, and I didn't release any pressure, but pull this out slowly, keep it covered. Okay, you know what, that's an evap line, so there's no pressure on it. And I'll pull the connection down above that cover. So I'm going to get a hand. We're going to go ahead and lower the subframe down now. Okay, now I can work on pulling CV axles out and separating this tranny, and I'll support that engine, which has a big mount on the top of the front, and then the tranny's held up with a mount on the top on the back. That's what's holding everything up now. And so I'll get some support here and disconnect some axles, and we'll get onto bell housing bolts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect some axle nuts, axle bolts. Maybe not. Should have done that before. Let me try the Milwaukee gun, see if it works. Okay, well, the Milwaukee's not doing it either. So I'm going to use this pedal depressor so I don't have to bother my son again. Hold the brake down and put a floor jack under the knuckle here. So and I'll do the same thing on the other side. I know, and I can take this fender liner all the way out of the way. It's not in my way too much, so. Okay, same thing over here. I put a floor jack under the knuckle. Alright, here's a preview of what's left to get the transmission out. We've got this duct that's going up to the turbo, so we get that out of the way. And take the starter out here and pull the passenger side axle out, the half shaft. We'll go ahead and get the driver side axle out. Could almost leave that in there. And it's got the slave cylinder, needs to come out. And this ground wire up here will need to come out off the tranny, and one sensor wire over here would need to come out, and then we're down to bell housing bolts and support the engine. So we'll get after it. Alright, let's pull this duct out. I got one. And bolt on the top here. Leave that bolt there. Oh, I see that's not a cap there, it's a whole piece. Okay. Move this light. Fluid's clean. Let's go ahead and pull the slave cylinder. Oh, sorry about that light. Okay. Pop this axle out so it's not hanging. Alright, we'll undo the starter now. And let's get a shorter extension here. Oh, there's some clutch material coming out of there. In case we were wondering. Okay. Go ahead and unplug this sensor up here. Okay, now we're pretty much at some bell housing bolts. Yeah, let's go ahead and put something under this engine and tranny since it's moving so much. So on these Torx bolts on the back here, I'm able to use an 11mm 12-point wrench and get these free. Actually, I don't. Okay, here's a better tool. Instead of stretching out my open end wrench. And this is a 12-point 11mm socket. I got that most of the way out. Okay. Go ahead and get these smaller ones out that are around the bell housing. Keep all my bell housing bolts together here. And let's see, up there's well, let's take out the higher one for now. Leave one in, and then we'll climb up top and loosen up the mount. Okay. Now there's only one more bolt holding the tranny up to the engine there. Okay, let's double check around here. Make sure we're not forgetting. Oh, I do have that ground wire over there we need to take loose. Let's get it with this here. Okay, that's free. Put that with my bell housing bolts. I got one more bolt there. And then it is the tranny mount up top there. So up top there's 3 bolts holding the mount on to the back of the transmission. I'm gonna climb on a ladder and loosen those. I'll put a tranny jack under here first and I'll loosen those, bring it back down. Okay, well I'm gonna go ahead and drain this transmission so it quits dripping everywhere. And I'd like to take the fill plug loose first. Make sure you can get fluid in it later. Only takes once to learn that lesson. Oh yeah, I thought I told you. Oh, I did forget. There's some of my toolbox right there. Yeah, you can move it out front too. I just didn't get a chance to move it. I kind of forgot about it. Okay, so I've got the tranny strapped down to the transmission jack and a jack stand under the back of the engine to help support that. I'm gonna climb up here and undo the 3 mount bolts. Okay, one more here. What's up, mister? Okay, so one more bolt holding the transmission to the engine right there on the bell housing, except for that one there, 2. Oh, right in front of me. All right, 2 more bolts. And last bolt up there. Get that free by hand. Okay. That should be the last bolt. Okay, train's coming loose. Go ahead and lower the engine down a little. Tranny down a little. And the engine down a little. Make sure we don't have any roots. Through bearing. Bunch of clutch material in here. 48,000. I've done some clutches pretty early on the minis. I don't know if it's the way people are driving them or kind of a weak clutch design. Okay, we'll get set up here and pull the pressure plate and the clutch out of there and have a look. Okay, I went ahead and marked the pressure plate to the flywheel down here. Just a habit I have to mark a lot of stuff. And I just noticed that the hub of the disc doesn't line up straight. So I haven't loosened anything yet, but it's completely broken in there. Don't breathe that, huh? Okay. Somehow I rounded that bolt. Seemed to. Oh, not good. Okay. Not super stoked about that, but I did that. Those are pretty nice sockets. Geez, I don't know who makes them, but I got them on the oh, I'll look into that a little bit later. I can't really see what it says. And all of this is getting replaced, or I'd be loosening these a little bit more even. That should be the last one. And the lights dying. Well, somehow completely disintegrated all of that. Okay, and this is a dual match flywheel. I'm gonna put a new flywheel on. I don't ever leave them in there, so I'll get that off of there. All right, I'm gonna use an air tool on this. I'm gonna spray a little brake clean in there. Try not to blow this dust around any more than I have to. My shop light died over here because it's about time to go home. And I don't know what kind of material they make clutch disc out of. I believe it used to be asbestos. It's no good for you. And whatever they use now is probably worse. So try not to blow that in the air and breathe it. Right, Zeus? And I put a little mark on that at the bottom of the flywheel so I know which hole's on the way. Pointing down, it probably doesn't matter on this. It's just a habit I have. Some vehicles had on the old Volkswagens anyway, had a crankshaft reluctor, like a sensor wheel ring, and you had to put that on the right way. So I just have a habit. I believe all those are out, although it's just stuck on the hub. Things are a little heavy, so definitely hot spotted, and all that clutch material is gone. The pressure plate's super toast, and the disc is toast. So I will see about putting a rear seal in this. I normally do if they don't take anything crazy, or if you don't have to drop the oil pan down. This one looks like a one-piece seal. So here's our crankshaft sensor here, so it does read off of this. This is what needs to be marked here, and it can only go one way, so we got a dowel pin right here, so it can only go one way. But this is actually what the crank sensor reads off of. You can kind of see the lines on it. Looks like a wheel bearing, kind of the reluctor in that. So anyway, we'll get a new seal in that, get my light charged up, and start putting it back together.